Hi, class. This is my migration project. So, my family story, I interviewed my mom and dad. My mom and dad are immigrants from Mexico, so they migrated. I'll be, I took notes down. I'll be uploading. It's you can see it on the link on the Word document. If I took notes, if you want to look, names have been retracted. So one thing that surprised me, I guess they didn't. Mm, they didn't feel comfortable sharing sharing not well it was not with me but because I guess I was gonna write it down. They didn't. I guess because they came in the illegal way, so they didn't feel very comfortable. So for my mom, she um, she came in. She's from Guanajuato, Mexico. So I told her. So I asked her about family history. The family history. So she talked about her maternal side, her mom, her her grandparents, and her great grandparents from both sides, her paternal and maternal. There were some stories, I guess. Yeah. Stories. Mm, stories. So how they came. So from Mexico, part dates from this the 19th century. Um, how they lived. So, for example, my great grandpa was his profession was a tailor. His his dad was worked in the rancho, but him since his leg didn't his leg was something wrong with him, so he had to so he couldn't continue as in the rancho, so he had to seek the a pueblo, which is Abasolo, and that's how he became a tailor, and then his son became a tailor. That's so. My mom migrated. Well, her dad in the 1960s worked in the in California in the fields. He was back and forth between California and Mexico. So, sort of, and her mom ran a store. Then she lost the store. They were poor, so they didn't have enough to eat. So they went to Tijuana in 1972. She was 9 years old from an autobus. She went from Abasolo, Guanajuato to Tijuana. And then in 1975, with her brother and two sisters, her mom, her dad was already waiting for them on the other side. They went, jumped the fence, and then they in San Diego as 12 years, she was 12 years old, and a Greyhound to Montebello. Asked her, did she feel, what she was feeling at the time. She was feeling sad and leaving everything behind, but no fear. She settled in Montebello with a few months with her aunt since she lived there. Then she moved to Boyle Heights since her cousins found her an apartment, $75 at the time. Her dad dies in 1978. She did not like school, but she didn't graduate high school. Her adaptation. She has she's in church, family, friends. She worked before she was around 17. Where she met my dad, and she was married at 18. She worked at a jewelry store in downtown LA. She identifies as Mexican, American, not really. She doesn't, I guess, she has taught her, she keeps her her country of origin by visiting Mexico once on an occasion, and she has taught her children Spanish. She has passed down her history. She has told us a lot of stories like legends and myths. She never learned the English language. She struggled with the language, but she didn't speak it to this day. So that was my mom. Then my dad, he's from the Luz, Zacatecas, Juanusco, Mexico. He talks about his parents, his family, maternal and paternal. A lot of legends. Interesting. The haunted houses he lived. He migrated since there was poverty. He was hungry. He wanted an economic opportunity to better himself, to study. He just graduated high school. He didn't go beyond. But I guess life got in the way. But he did wanted to go further. His parents stayed behind. His uncle and aunt and cousins in 1979 came along. He crossed the border. He asked them, on he how on his journey. It was difficult. It was long. A lot of walking, fear of the uncertain, but he hoped for a better future for for himself. He settled in Bell, California in 1979. He was a field worker in Ventura. It was brutal. A lot of uh, a lot of picking, bending down. He worked at the jewelry store in downtown after. He worked with my mom. He was married at 20. The 1986 immigration policies helped him stay in the country. He learned a bit of English. He became a U.S. citizen in 1999. He identifies as Mexican. He travels every year to the Rancho's Feast of La Santa Cruz, May 3rd. He speaks Spanish. He taught us his. Then he retains ties to his origin by remittances to his mom and dad in Mexico. He sends them monthly. Then migration led. I asked him, did migration create opportunities and challenges? He was English limited, strong, but he had a strong work ethic. Strong work ethic for hard work. And then for the references, I looked at an article found on EBSCOhost, and then a book, since the article didn't really give too much information. The article is Development and the Urban and Rural Geography of Mexican Immigration to the United States. It's a link. I put the link on the post. The reference is right there. See, not the link, but you can look at it if you want to. Since its focus is in 1970s, 1980s, my parents more the time frame they came into the U.S. as sort of the Mexican socio-economic development has occurred under the species of new labor reform, integration to the global marketplace, progress of coordinated and recurrent cities. At the time they were coming in, there was a lot of. So for my mom, she during the 1970s, Luis Echeverria was president. He was very authoritarian. Economic crisis occurs at the end of his term. And then for my dad, he migrated in the 1980s when López Portillo was president. His presidency, there was a debt crisis after the oil prices. There's a bunch of economic downfall. So the book talks about it's called Undocumented Life, the Untold Story of Mexican Migration. It focuses 1960s to the 1980s. when a period when many of the occurred elements around unauthorized migration were born. It tells how Mexican migrants went from being a population that was pushed out of all the places they resided and person to engage in circular migration to a population that felt trapped and pressured to settle permanently in the U.S. I connected it also to my grandpa because he was in the 1960s traveling back and forth. It talks about the 1960s, how the Migration and Nationality Act, and then in the 1980s, they passed the Immigration Reform and Control Act, which made it difficult for Mexicans to cross and back and forth without papers. And then for my object, I the link in the PDF my picture. In the picture, we see two people. On the man on the left was my granddad, who lived to be almost 100 years old and who still met me as a baby. He held me. To his right is his daughter, or my grandma, who migrated to this country in search of a better life. She raised her children practically on her own since her husband was already in the U.S. He did send remittances. He did travel back and forth. She worked odd jobs in the U.S. Then my grandpa passed away 3 years after migrating into the U.S. So the picture holds a lot of sentimental value for me. So in concluding my concluding thoughts, some of the details I was not aware of, into how they got to this country. It's hard for me to imagine to go through to a new country, getting used to accustomed, and they were uncomfortable to share. That was surprising for me. So that's my migration project. Yeah. Thank you for watching. I'm Fernando Renteria. Okay.